Welcome to Hollywood World. In this video, we're going to uncover the hidden, controversial, and often overlooked side of one of cinema's most iconic figures, Humphrey Bogart. While most remember him for his legendary roles in Casablanca, The Maltese Falcon, and The Big Sleep, there's a darker truth buried beneath the surface, a web of difficult behavior, troubled relationships, feuds with fellow actors, and moments of shocking volatility. We're digging into the real bogey, warts and all. From brutal brawls to bitter rivalries, and the actors who both admired and feared him, this is a side of Bogart that rarely sees the spotlight. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear from you. 1. Lauren Bacall. The love of his life, or was she just a casualty of his dark side? Lauren Bacall and Humphrey Bogart's romance is the stuff of Hollywood legend. But the reality was far from perfect. Bogart, over 2 decades her senior, was possessive and deeply jealous. Bacall later admitted that Bogart's drinking led to frequent arguments and emotional coldness. Despite their on-screen chemistry and seemingly unbreakable bond, Bacall quietly suffered through Bogart's unpredictable moods, especially when alcohol took over. Some insiders even claimed she lost herself in the marriage, often bending to Bogart's volatile temper behind closed doors. 2. Frank Sinatra. Bogart may have loved the Rat Pack image, but his relationship with Frank Sinatra was icy. Sinatra joined the Bogart-led Holmby Hills Rat Pack, but the two men clashed. Sinatra thought Bogart was a bully, Bogart thought Sinatra was soft. During drunken parties, Bogart mocked Sinatra mercilessly, calling him the voice with no backbone. Sinatra would later say that Bogart liked to tear people down just to build himself up. Their friendship quickly fizzled into quiet disdain. 3. Ingrid Bergman. Though their chemistry in Casablanca is timeless, their off-screen relationship was cold and mechanical. Bergman once said that while Bogart was professional, he was distant and difficult to connect with. Rumors suggested Bogart was intimidated by Bergman's talent and felt upstaged by her presence on set. Their iconic kiss, totally awkward behind the scenes. The tension added to the magic on screen, but it was driven by Bogart's refusal to let down his guard, especially around strong women. 4. John Huston. John Huston was one of Bogart's closest collaborators, directing him in classics like The Maltese Falcon and The Treasure of the Sierra Madre. But even their bond wasn't immune to Bogart's temper. On set, Bogart could be combative, especially when drinking. During the filming of Beat the Devil, Huston almost shut down production after Bogart threw a tantrum over script changes. Their partnership survived, but not without scars, mostly emotional ones. 5. Errol Flynn. Errol Flynn and Bogart were chalk and cheese, and they hated each other. Flynn, the swashbuckling ladies' man, thought Bogart was overrated. Bogart thought Flynn was a reckless pretty boy. Things came to a head at a party where Bogart allegedly challenged Flynn to a fight over comments made about Bacall. Witnesses claimed Bogart had to be pulled away as he lunged at Flynn, slurring obscenities. The two never spoke again. 6. James Cagney. 2 alpha males. 1 studio. Countless conflicts. Cagney and Bogart were both Warner Brothers titans, often competing for similar roles. Cagney resented Bogart's rising star and his growing ego. Bogart, in turn, accused Cagney of being too clean for real noir. While they co-starred in films like The Roaring Twenties, their backstage battles were filled with tension, with producers often forced to keep them apart between scenes. 7. Bette Davis. Bette Davis never tolerated nonsense, and she had very little patience for Bogart. During Dark Victory, Davis found Bogart's on-set behavior arrogant and dismissive. She complained to studio heads about his drinking and his habit of arguing with directors. Bogart dismissed her as a high-maintenance diva, while Davis called him a brute with a pretty mouth. They never worked together again. 8. Spencer Tracy. You'd think two icons would get along, but no. Bogart and Tracy had wildly different personalities. Tracy was low-key and professional. Bogart was high-strung and confrontational. At one studio gathering, Tracy reportedly confronted Bogart about his treatment of a young crew member, telling him to act like a man, not a movie star. Bogart, furious, stormed out and refused to attend any further studio functions with Tracy present. 9. Ava Gardner. Gardner had a brief fling with Bogart before his marriage to Beall, but it ended in disaster. Gardner said Bogart was electrifying, but only for a moment. She later claimed he was jealous, demanding, and emotionally unavailable. The final straw came when Bogart accused her of sleeping with another actor, loudly and publicly at a party, leading to a slap from Gardner and a black eye for Bogart. 10. George Raft. Raft was one of the few actors who gave Bogart a break, then came to regret it. When Bogart got his start, Raft reportedly passed on several gangster roles, allowing Bogart to rise. But as Bogart's fame eclipsed his own, Raft grew resentful. The two had a falling out in the 1940s after Bogart made a crude joke about Raft's connections to the mob. Raft, in response, refused to attend any event where Bogart would be present. 11. Peter Lorie. Lorie and Bogart worked together in The Maltese Falcon and Casablanca, but their friendship was fraught. Bogart often mocked Lorie's thick accent and odd mannerisms. Though Lorie played along, insiders said he found it humiliating. Off-set, Bogart would imitate Lorie to crowds at bars, often drawing laughter at his friend's expense. Lorie, who struggled with depression, eventually distanced himself from Bogart entirely. 12. Marilyn Monroe. Though they never co-starred, Bogart reportedly referred to Monroe as a flash in the pan, and criticized her acting ability. Monroe, who deeply admired Bogart, was crushed when she heard his comments. She later avoided him entirely at studio functions. In one awkward encounter, Monroe tried to introduce herself, only for Bogart to turn away and light a cigarette. Cold and cruel, the moment cemented his reputation as aloof, and at times, downright mean. 13. Sidney Greenstreet. Greenstreet and Bogart shared the screen in multiple classics, but their working relationship was testy. Greenstreet, older and more classically trained, didn't appreciate Bogart's brusque demeanor. Bogart thought Greenstreet was a pompous windbag. One on-set argument nearly shut down production on Across the Pacific, with Bogart threatening to walk unless Greenstreet kept his mouth shut. 14. Lee Marvin. Before Marvin was a star, he had a bit role opposite Bogart, and never forgot how poorly he was treated. Marvin later recounted how Bogart belittled him during filming, calling him a nobody. When Marvin finally achieved fame, he reportedly turned down a role because it would have meant working with Bogart again. He later said, "I learned how not to treat people by watching Bogey." 15. Rita Hworth. Hworth and Bogart didn't work together often, but they crossed paths at several Hollywood functions, and sparks flew, in the worst way. Bogart, in a drunken state, reportedly tried to grope Hworth at a party. She slapped him and stormed out. Though he later apologized, the incident stuck with her, and she warned others about Bogart's handsy tendencies when under the influence. 16. Katharine Hepburn. Hepburn was famously unafraid of anyone, but she refused to work with Bogart again after The African Queen. She admired his talent but found his drinking unbearable. She even kept a journal during filming, writing that Bogart sabotaged himself with the bottle. Their on-screen magic came at a cost, with director John Huston constantly mediating between the two to avoid blowouts. 17. Marlene Dietrich. Dietrich and Bogart had a fling in the 1930s, but it ended in bitterness. Dietrich later said that Bogart had the charm of a shark, and that his romantic attention quickly turned cold and controlling. She accused him of trying to sabotage her reputation after their breakup. Bogart denied it, but the tension between the two was thick enough to cut with a knife for years after. So there you have it, 17 stars who crossed paths with Humphrey Bogart and got burned. Behind the legendary screen presence was a complicated man, driven by insecurity, rage, alcohol, and a need for control. His brilliance was undeniable, but so was his darkness. Bogart's legacy remains intact, but it's worth remembering that icons are human too, flawed, messy, and sometimes destructive. What do you think about Bogart's darker side? Let us know in the comments. And if you want more revealing stories from classic Hollywood, don't forget to like this video, hit that subscribe button, and ring the bell so you never miss a story. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Hollywood World.